Recep Tayyip Erdoğan's story is not just the journey of a man, but the transformation of an entire nation. Born in the narrow streets of Istanbul, raised in modest conditions, and shaped by faith and perseverance, he rose against all odds to become one of the most powerful leaders in modern history. His path from a semi-professional footballer to a global statesman captures both struggle and triumph. Erdoğan's charisma, bold speeches, and ability to connect with ordinary people gave him an edge that many politicians lacked. He endured imprisonment, political bans, and relentless opposition, yet each setback only fueled his determination. From leading Istanbul as a mayor who solved everyday problems, to founding a new political movement that reshaped Turkey, his career reflects resilience and ambition. His leadership brought economic reforms, massive infrastructure projects, and a renewed sense of pride to millions of Turks. At the same time, his rise sparked debates over democracy, freedom, and power. Loved by supporters as a savior of the nation and criticized by opponents as an authoritarian figure, Erdoğan remains a deeply polarizing force. His vision of a new Turkey emphasizes faith, strength, and independence, both at home and on the global stage. From surviving a coup attempt to redefining the presidency, Erdoğan's life is filled with dramatic turning points. Every chapter of his journey raises questions of destiny, leadership, and sacrifice. Whether admired or opposed, his influence is undeniable. His story is not just history, it is still being written. July 15, 2016 was the longest and most historic night in the history of the country. The night of the decision. The night when the army was on the roads. Tanks were standing on the roads, and there was a bombardment of the parliament from the sky. Perhaps history was repeating itself. Another military rebellion was about to succeed. The president, who was elected by the votes of the people, was on vacation, and no one knew where he was, whether he was alive or not. It seemed that everything would change. And then there was a voice that I invite our nation to the squares of our cities. I invite them to airports. I invite them to the squares of our cities that I invite them to airports. I invite them to the squares of our cities. I invite them to airports that I invite them to airports. And then the world saw a scene that could not be seen anywhere other than Turkey. The people came out in the voice of their leader. And remember, when the people are on the roads, no force in the world can stop them. Neither bullets, nor tanks, nor ships. This was the birth of a new Turkey. The Turkey in which the people make the decisions, not the army. But they say that time does not last forever. So this story was not only prepared for that night, but for years and decades. This story is actually a question that still surprises the whole world that after all, in a very strict secular country created by Ataturk, where the army is a guardian of secularism in the country, where every voice that is raised for Islam has been crushed for decades, how did a leader with a clear Islamic background become so powerful that no one has been able to shake him for many years? How did a poor boy who sold water bottles and bread on the streets of Istanbul become the most powerful leader of Turkey? Such a democratic leader who is elected by the people, not once, but repeatedly, and does what he wants. Has this confidence changed him today? Is he really a democratic leader today? Or is he now in control of all the powers of Turkey's new sultan? Did he make Turkey a military and economic power from the Sikh man of Europe? Or are these his policies that have left Turkey alone in a new kind of democracy and a new economic crisis? Today we try to solve this puzzle in the story of Recep Tayyip Erdoğan. Recep Tayyip Erdoğan was born on February 26, 1954, in the Kasımpaşa district of Istanbul, Turkey, a working-class neighborhood near the Golden Horn. His family originally came from the Black Sea region of Rise, known for its tea plantations and traditional Turkish culture. Erdoğan's father was a Coast Guard, and because of his profession, the family often lived modestly and moved between Istanbul and Rise. Growing up, Erdoğan experienced the struggles of poor urban families, something that deeply shaped his political image later. As a boy, he was known for his strong discipline, love for sports, and deep attachment to religion. He attended a religious vocational school, the Imam Hatip School, where he studied both Islamic subjects and general education. This environment nurtured his strong Islamic identity and respect for traditional Turkish values. At the same time, Erdoğan developed an interest in poetry and oratory, which later became one of his political strengths. Football was another passion of his youth, and he played semi-professionally for a local club. Some of his peers believe he might have pursued football as a career if politics had not attracted him so strongly. Growing up in a rapidly changing Istanbul, he witnessed poverty, inequality, and the clash between secular and religious groups, all of which shaped his worldview. His formative years taught him perseverance, ambition, and the ability to connect with ordinary citizens. By the time he graduated, Erdoğan had a reputation for being ambitious, hardworking, and deeply committed to faith. After completing his studies at Imam Hatip, Erdoğan enrolled in Marmara University's Faculty of Economics and Commercial Sciences, graduating in 1981. During his university years, Turkey was experiencing significant political and social turmoil, including student protests, clashes between left and right-wing groups, and growing debates over religion's role in society. Erdoğan became increasingly active in student organizations that leaned toward Islamic values. In the 1970s, he officially joined the National Salvation Party, MSP, led by Necmettin Erbakan, who would later be his mentor in political Islam. Erdoğan began his political career in youth branches of this party, distributing pamphlets, attending rallies, and learning the basics of grassroots organization. When the military coup of 1980 banned political parties, he temporarily stepped back from open politics, but remained connected to the Islamist movement. His perseverance paid off when he joined the newly formed welfare party, Reshaped, in the 1980s. Erdoğan gained attention for his strong speeches, charisma, and ability to connect with ordinary citizens, especially in Istanbul's poorer neighborhoods. His political rise reflected the frustrations of a population that felt marginalized by Turkey's strict secular policies. He quickly became known as a rising star in the welfare party, admired for his youthful energy and powerful voice. His reputation as a religious yet modern-minded politician began to grow. Erdoğan's early activism proved his ability to blend traditional Islamic values with pragmatic political messaging. These years prepared him for a much larger stage. In 1994, Erdoğan ran for mayor of Istanbul under the Welfare Party banner. Despite being underestimated by secular elites, he won the election with strong support from working-class neighborhoods. As mayor, Erdoğan surprised many skeptics by focusing not on religious issues, but on practical urban problems. Istanbul at that time was struggling with chronic water shortages, waste management crises, and severe traffic jams. Erdoğan prioritized clean water, improved garbage collection, and better transportation systems. He introduced major reforms, including water purification projects and modern bus fleets, which improved daily life for millions. He also fought against corruption in the municipality, earning him credibility even among critics. Although he had Islamic values, he did not impose them directly. Instead, he emphasized efficient governance. Under his leadership, Istanbul became cleaner, more organized, and more hopeful about the future. Erdoğan also gained international recognition for his pragmatic, problem-solving approach. However, his association with political Islam made him controversial in Turkey's secular establishment. During his mayoral term, he also demonstrated his strong communication skills, often giving speeches that inspired loyalty and passion. Istanbul's transformation under his leadership proved that Erdoğan was more than a populist speaker. He was a capable administrator. This period cemented his reputation as a leader who could connect faith with modern governance. For many citizens, Erdoğan's Istanbul success was proof that he could lead Turkey itself one day. His popularity skyrocketed across the nation, setting the stage for his future ambitions. Despite his successes, Erdoğan faced political challenges due to Turkey's rigid secular system. In 1997, Turkey's military forced the resignation of Necmettin Erbakan, declaring that Islamist politics threatened secular democracy. Soon after, Erdoğan himself became a target. In 1998, he delivered a speech insert that included verses from a nationalist Islamist poem. "The mosques are our barracks, the domes are helmets, the minarets are bayonets, and the faithful are soldiers." Authorities accused him of inciting religious hatred, and he was sentenced to 10 months in prison, though he served 4 months. His removal from office as mayor and his imprisonment were intended to end his political career. Ironically, this setback only boosted his popularity. Many ordinary Turks saw him as a victim of an unfair system that discriminated against religious people. The image of Erdoğan as a humble, persecuted leader gained him sympathy nationwide. While in prison, he reflected on his political strategy and concluded that Turkey needed a more moderate, inclusive Islamic-based party. He realized that success required avoiding direct confrontation with the secular establishment while still representing conservative voters. Erdoğan emerged from prison not as a defeated politician, but as a stronger figure ready for national leadership. His imprisonment became a turning point, giving him the identity of a resilient fighter for justice. The stage was now set for the creation of a new political movement that would reshape Turkey's future. After his release from prison, Erdoğan and his allies realized that Turkey needed a new political vision. In 2001, together with Abdullah Gül and other reform-minded politicians, he founded the Justice and Development Party, AKP, Elet Kalkınma Partisi. The AKP presented itself not as an Islamist party, but as a conservative democratic party that embraced religion in public life while respecting democracy and modernization. This rebranding was crucial in gaining wider public acceptance. Erdoğan and his colleagues promised to fight corruption, strengthen the economy, and bring Turkey closer to the European Union. The party's message appealed to both religious conservatives and moderate liberals who were tired of unstable coalition governments. In the 2002 general elections, the AKP achieved a landslide victory, securing two-thirds of the seats in parliament. Because of his prior conviction, Erdoğan was initially banned from becoming prime minister. Instead, Abdullah Gül briefly served in the role. However, after a constitutional amendment removed his ban, Erdoğan won a by-election in Sirte and became prime minister in March 2003. His rise marked the beginning of a new political era in Turkey. Erdoğan promised stability, economic reforms, and democratic freedoms. His leadership style combined religious values, nationalist rhetoric, and pragmatic politics. For millions of Turks, he symbolized hope, change, and strength. His AKP quickly consolidated power and began to transform Turkey's domestic and international policies. Erdoğan's journey from prisoner to prime minister became a symbol of political resilience. Erdoğan's first years as prime minister were marked by rapid reforms and impressive economic growth. Turkey had suffered from financial crises in the 1990s, and Erdoğan prioritized restoring economic confidence. His government reduced inflation, stabilized the currency, and attracted foreign investment. Major infrastructure projects began, including highways, bridges, and airports. Erdoğan also launched health reforms, improving access to hospitals and medicine for poorer citizens. Education was another focus, with investments in schools and universities. Politically, Erdoğan emphasized democratic reforms to align Turkey with European Union standards. His government abolished the death penalty, expanded cultural rights for minorities, especially Kurds, and strengthened civilian control over the military. These steps boosted Turkey's EU accession process, earning praise from European leaders. At the same time, Erdoğan built a loyal voter base by combining economic growth with conservative social values. He often spoke about family, religion, and Turkish pride. Critics warned that he was concentrating too much power in his hands, but his supporters admired his decisiveness. Internationally, Erdoğan sought to position Turkey as a bridge between East and West. He strengthened ties with the United States, Europe, and Middle Eastern countries. His charisma and strong leadership made him one of the most influential figures in Turkish politics. During these years, Erdoğan was widely praised as a reformist leader who modernized Turkey. However, beneath the surface, tensions between secularists and conservatives continued to simmer. His balancing act between democracy and tradition defined his early rule. By his second and third terms as prime minister, Erdoğan's power and influence had grown significantly. His government launched ambitious projects, such as high-speed railways, modern hospitals, and massive housing developments. Turkey's economy became one of the fastest-growing in the world, lifting millions out of poverty. Erdoğan also introduced social welfare programs that increased his popularity among the working class. However, critics began to accuse him of authoritarian tendencies. He was accused of silencing dissent, restricting media freedom, and prosecuting journalists critical of the government. The military, once the guardian of secularism, lost much of its power under Erdoğan's reforms, especially after a series of controversial trials known as Ergenekon and Balyaz. Erdoğan presented these trials as efforts to strengthen democracy, but many believe they were also designed to eliminate political opponents. In foreign policy, Erdoğan adopted a more assertive approach. He promoted the idea of a new Turkey that was independent and influential in regional politics. However, his stance sometimes led to strained relations with the EU and the U.S. The 2013 Gezi Park protest became a major test of his leadership, as millions demonstrated against his government's perceived authoritarianism and disregard for civil rights. Erdoğan responded with firm police action, which further polarized Turkish society. Despite these challenges, Erdoğan's base remained loyal, viewing him as a leader who defended traditional values against Western and secular influence. His consolidation of power prepared the way for his next political move. In 2014, Erdoğan became the first directly elected president of Turkey, winning more than 50% of the vote in the first round. Traditionally, the presidency had been a symbolic and largely ceremonial office. However, Erdoğan aimed to transform it into the most powerful position in the country. As president, he continued to exert influence over the AKP and the government, blurring the line between the presidency and the prime minister's office. He presented himself as a father of a new Turkey, promoting nationalism, religion, and strong leadership. In 2016, Turkey faced one of its most dramatic moments, a failed coup attempt by elements of the military. Erdoğan narrowly escaped capture and rallied millions of citizens to resist the coup through mass protests. The event strengthened his image as a heroic leader who defended democracy. Following the coup attempt, Erdoğan declared a state of emergency and launched massive purges of the military, judiciary, media, and civil service. Critics argued that he used the coup as an excuse to silence opposition and consolidate power further. In 2017, a controversial referendum narrowly passed, granting Erdoğan sweeping executive powers and transforming Turkey into a presidential system. This meant the office of prime minister was abolished, and Erdoğan became both head of state and head of government. His authority now extended across all branches of government, cementing his dominance. Supporters praised him for saving Turkey from chaos, while opponents warned of authoritarianism. Erdoğan had successfully reshaped Turkish politics in his image. As president, Erdoğan pursued a bold and sometimes unpredictable foreign policy. He sought to position Turkey as an independent global power, not tied too closely to the West. Relations with the European Union cooled, especially as EU membership negotiations stalled. Tensions rose over human rights and democratic backsliding. At the same time, Erdoğan built closer ties with Russia, China, and Middle Eastern countries. His government played a key role in the Syrian civil war, both supporting opposition groups and launching military operations against Kurdish forces near the border. Erdoğan also emphasized Turkey's role as a leader of the Muslim world, often criticizing Western policies in the Middle East. His speeches about Palestine, Jerusalem, and Muslim solidarity earned him admiration across the Islamic world. However, his confrontational style also created friction with traditional allies like the United States. Economically, foreign policy decisions sometimes affected the Turkish lira, which experienced severe crises in recent years. Yet Erdoğan portrayed himself as a defender of Turkish independence against foreign interference. He often used nationalist and religious rhetoric to frame foreign policy struggles as battles for sovereignty. His global role was marked by both assertiveness and controversy. While admired by many Muslims as a courageous voice against Western dominance, he was equally criticized by others for unpredictability. Erdoğan's vision of Turkey as a strong, independent power has remained a cornerstone of his leadership. Recep Tayyip Erdoğan remains one of the most influential and polarizing figures in modern Turkish history. Supporters view him as the man who modernized Turkey, gave a voice to religious conservatives, expanded infrastructure, and strengthened national pride. His rise from a poor neighborhood to the highest office in the country embodies resilience and determination. However, critics argue that he has undermined democracy, restricted freedoms, and concentrated too much power in his hands. Economically, his early years were marked by strong growth, But in recent years, Turkey has struggled with inflation, currency crises, and rising living costs. Politically, Erdoğan has maintained dominance through strategic alliances, loyal supporters, and appeals to nationalism and religion. His leadership has deeply transformed Turkey's political system, culture, and international position. Whether admired as a visionary leader or criticized as an authoritarian, his impact on Turkey is undeniable. Erdoğan's story reflects the complex balance between religion and secularism, democracy and strong leadership, modernization and tradition. His journey from a football-playing boy in Istanbul to the powerful president of Turkey is one of the most remarkable political stories of the 21st century. As he continues to shape Turkey's destiny, debates about his legacy will remain central to the nation's future. Love him or oppose him, Recep Tayyip Erdoğan's name will always be remembered in Turkish history, in the story of his rise, his successes, and the serious accusations against him. We will see why millions of people consider him their hero and why millions of people hate him. This is a story that will help you understand one of the most important leaders of the 21st century. So subscribe to the channel because we are going to bring many more such videos for you. Always remember that before understanding any leader, it is very important to understand his country. It is important to understand the circumstances and events in which he was born, grew up, and started his political struggle. So the Turkey in which Recep Tayyip Erdoğan grew up was apparently a democracy, but the fact is that it was controlled by the army. Perhaps you know that Turkey was the first country in the Muslim world to adopt secularism, and that too with great severity. The Ottoman Empire was destroyed. The symbol of the unity of Muslims, the symbol of unity, Caliphate, was destroyed. And after that, with all the oppression and force, secularism was implemented, and the security of this system was given to the army. Yes, it was the Turkish army that called itself the guardian of secularism, and in the name of its protection, it did not allow any such government, any such politician to run, who tried to bring Islam back to the country, whoever deviated a little from the path of Ataturk. The army removed him. Like in 1960, the elected Prime Minister Adnan Mahindra was removed. In fact, he was hanged with some of the companions. But why? Just because he allowed the call to prayer in Arabic in the country. The ban on building mosques was removed, and the ban on the recitation of the Quran was removed. And in secular Turkey, no other crime could have been greater than this. And he was sentenced to death by the military court. Then in 1971, another government was sent home through a memorandum. Then in 1980, there was a very big bloodbath. The army arrested 500,000 people and put them in jails. 50 were hanged. Thousands were targeted with the worst torture. It was announced that only and only the tongue of power would be spoken in the country. In 1997, Turkey's first elected prime minister, Necmettin Erbakan, was removed. Without tanks, without bullets, only through the pressure of the media and the court. It was called the postmodern coup. The army was not allowing any government to run. This created such a political crisis in Turkey that despite all the potential, the country was in a bad situation. Turkey was a very weak country economically, where no government could make a long-term policy. There was inflation in the country. Turkey was stuck in the debts of the IMF, and the world once again called Turkey the sixth man of Europe. The people were fed up with this system, these incompetent politicians, and the constant interference of the army. They were waiting for a Messiah. They were waiting for a savior who could clean the filth of decades. And no one had a clue. A boy who sold water and bread in the streets of Kasımpaşa, Istanbul, would change their fate. His name was Recep Tayyip Erdoğan. Recep Tayyip's father worked on a ship. He was a poor family man. He had a hard time making ends meet. After school, Recep used to sell water and cement in the streets for his pocket money and school fees. Yes, these Turkish-style sesame cookies. No one knew that this boy, who used to raise his voice for some coins in the streets, would one day become the mayor of the same city, and then the prime minister, and then the most powerful president in Turkey's history. Yes, Erdoğan was not born with a gold spoon. He was raised by the people. He had faced the struggle of a common man's life, and he knew and understood it well. And perhaps this was what connected him to the people. In fact, I say that this background was the biggest power of Recep Tayyip Erdoğan. Anyway, long story short, Erdoğan took a step in politics after growing up, and that too in the studies of Naci Erbakan. Erbakan was the founder of Islamic politics in Turkey. His ideology was called Milli Görüş, i.e. a national ideology. Its purpose was to remove Turkey from the slavery of the West, to make it a self-dependent industrial power, and to make it a power that boasts of its Islamic values. Erdoğan started his politics with the Rafa party of Erbakan, and because of his great ability to work hard and deliver speeches, he quickly moved forward in the party. If I start soft, whoever I put my finger on maybe will be cut, but I don't feel like pulling it. His biggest turning point in life came in 1994. We became the mayor-elect of Istanbul, the largest city in Turkey. This was the time when Istanbul was the center of problems. There was a lot of garbage in the city. The water supply had made the citizens' lives difficult. Traffic problems were different, and the biggest problem was corruption. Istanbul was the capital of Turkey. It was a city that was once very beautiful. It was the capital of the country, but not anymore. Erdoğan did something that probably no one could do. He worked day and night to solve the basic problems of the city. New water pipelines were laid, a new system for picking up garbage was made, transport was improved, and he did all this without corruption. He proved that Islam-loving leaders are not just politicians, but people who work. And he is a great administrator. People started saying that this guy works. He doesn't eat, he just puts on weight. But wait a minute, the secular establishment didn't like this at all. They didn't want to see an Islam-loving leader become famous like this. In 1997, Recep Tayyip Erdoğan was sent to jail, and he was banned from participating in politics. But why? This is a very strange story. So strange that we may not even understand. It so happened that in December 1997, Erdoğan recited a poem during a rally, Allahu Akbar. It was a poem by a Turkish poet, Ziya Gökalp, in the 20th century. The first line of the poem was, "Mosques are our pillars, their domes are our helmets, their minarets are our spears, and Muslims are our soldiers." Yes, upon reading this, Erdoğan was accused of inciting violence and spreading religious hatred. In every step that I take as a Muslim, if I love a person in my society, the most important reason for this is Islam, which is my religion. Islam loves me because it has ordered me to love people. He was sentenced to 10 months in prison. The mayor of the city lost his job because he had become a criminal, and he was also banned from participating in politics. Not only that, his teacher, Naci Erbakan's government, was also abolished, and he was banned from participating in any political party. In the eyes of the army and the establishment, work had been done. The future of Erbakan and his political successors was over. It is said that once in jail, a government official told Erdoğan, "Your party has been banned. You are also in jail. Your companions have also been dismissed. Your imam, i.e. Erbakan, is also finished. What will become of you now?" Erdoğan replied in such a way that the official was also speechless. He said, "My political imam, i.e. Erbakan, may not be difficult, but my real imam is making me lead the Kaaba. As long as he is there, I am not worried about anyone." This answer shows that no one else had any idea. But Erdoğan knew that Narg is a temporary thing, and their real journey is yet to begin. Now Erdoğan was on a launching pad. He was ready to bring the biggest change in Turkish politics. But here he took a step that everyone did not like. Not at all for the secularists, but perhaps not even for the Islamists. After getting out of jail, Erdoğan adopted a new practical wisdom, which was a better and wiser step in his eyes. He separated himself from Erbakan, and in 2001, he formed a new party, the Justice and Progress Party. Now he started presenting himself not as an Islamist, but as a conservative Democrat. Instead of clashing with the West, he started talking about becoming part of the European Union, and he made the biggest promise of the end of corruption and economic development. He was now playing on such a pitch that attracted every class to him. And then, in the 2002 elections, his party achieved a historic success. After decades, a single party in Turkey formed a solid government. But there was a problem with this government. Tayyip Erdoğan could not become the prime minister due to restrictions. The AAP party made Abdullah Gül the prime minister. And almost 4 months later, a new law was enacted, and Recep Tayyip Erdoğan became the prime minister. And with that, the economic miracle began. The AAP party changed the face of Turkey. The biggest thing they did was to repay the IMF loan of $25.5 billion. And they said goodbye forever. This was the announcement of the Turkish economy's self-determination. Then in just 10 years, Turkey's GDP increased from $236 billion to $950 billion. Yes, almost 4 times more. Happiness was clearly visible among the people. The country's per capita income increased from $3,500 to $11,000. Millions of people came out of poverty and became part of the middle class. The AAP party also made many mega projects across the country. They spread the entire network of hospitals, universities, roads, and bridges. They built the world's largest airport in Istanbul. They built a railway tunnel under the sea in the city. And they built another bridge to connect Asia and Europe. All this happened during the era of the AAP party. More importantly, Turkey's defense industry also became completely self-reliant. In fact, its drone technology not only strengthened Turkey, but also its friends' defense. Along with economic development, Erdoğan also gave respect to Turkish religious and conservative people. He gave them the rights they were deprived of. As before, Turkey was banned from wearing a hijab in universities and government offices. When the first government of the AAP party came to power, Prime Minister Abdullah Gül was saluted by the army chief because his wife was wearing a hijab. But Tayyip Erdoğan ended this ban. He included hundreds of thousands of Turkish women in the national sphere who wore the hijab. And in 2020, he made a decision that showed that the future of Turkey is connected to Islam, not secularism. In 2020, he turned Hagia Sophia into a mosque again. This is a historical place of worship that Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror turned into a mosque after conquering Istanbul in 1453. But in 1914, in the era of Ataturk, it was turned into a museum. Then, 86 years later, there was another call to prayer in Hagia Sophia. The first Friday prayer was performed in almost the entire Muslim world. This was not only a great success for the Turkish nation, but also for the Muslim world. It was a declaration that Turkey is no longer ashamed of its Islamic history and heritage, but is proud of it. Turkey's foreign policy has always worked to please the West and Israel. In 2009, the world saw the first glimpse of new Turkey on the world stage of Davos. Israeli President Shimon Peres defended Israeli attacks on Gaza for about 25 minutes. Yes, this is a story from October 7th, 2023. This was the case in Gaza. So when it was the turn of Erdoğan after the Israeli president, he was given only 12 minutes. And when he was answering, the moderator started hitting him again and again. I'm going to hold you to the 1 minute. Please. Prime Minister, we can't start the debate again. Please, we just don't have time. Excuse me. Let me turn this over to our host. Prime Minister, do what? It was not just a diplomatic dispute. It was Erdoğan's declaration. The declaration that Turkey is no longer a slave to the West or Israel, but a self-governing country. A country that the Muslim world, especially Palestine, will not be afraid to raise its voice. In the Arab and Muslim world, Erdoğan became a hero overnight, and the West also received a message that now the tide of the game has changed. Then Turkey did one more thing. He conquered the world. That too with great silence. Only through his media. The dramas made on Ertugrul Ghazi brought Turkey's soft power to the skies. This and other dramas are seen and liked in more than 150 countries today. These dramas do not only give Turkey a lot of peace, but make Turkey's image a hero all over the world, especially in the Muslim world. And they are also increasing the tourism in the country a lot. Turkey was already ahead in tourism, but in the era of Erdoğan, Turkey has become one of the top countries in the world. Look at all these aspects. You will feel that Turkey is walking on a positive path. It is becoming a powerful country. But is everything really good? No, everything can never be good. One aspect of Erdoğan's struggle is that which no one can see. war with his deep state, the struggle with the most powerful establishment in the Muslim world, which had made a state within a state. Before looking at the other side of Erdogan's picture, we will have to understand this struggle. We said that Erdogan's struggle was with the army and secular parties. But is the story so simple? Not at all. In Turkey, the real game was played behind the scenes, through such a power that no one could see, but everyone felt. This is called daring development. In simple words, a state within a state. What was this? It was not a formal organization. It was a secret, unofficial group of generals, secret agents, judges of the court, big bureaucrats, powerful businessmen, and even the mafia. They all had one thing in common: Turkey's strict secular and nationalist ideology. They believed that they were the real owners of Turkey, not the politicians who are sent to the parliament by the people. Their job was to make sure that the country never deviated from the path set by Ataturk, especially not to go towards Islam. How did this deep state work? When a government went against their will, it led to military rebellions. It led to political killings. It created chaos and unrest in the country so that military intervention could be created. It used the military to impose restrictions on political parties, and it used the media to create propaganda. This was an invisible hand that decided the fate of Turkey, and that too in a closed room. When Erdogan came to power in 2002, he knew that his real enemy was not just the political parties, but this deep state hidden behind the veil. And if he wants to stay in power and implement his vision, then he will have to destroy the state within the state. And then in 2007, the drama started, which is called the Ergenekon trials. The police claimed that they had exposed a very secret nationalist organization, that to overthrow the government of Erdogan, they were planning bomb blasts, killing and creating unrest. And the conspiracies of this organization went straight to the deep state. Then for the next few years, there was an uproar in Turkey. Hundreds of retired generals, admirals, professors, and businessmen were arrested. They were tried live on TV. The country was accused of treason. Many were sentenced to long imprisonment. This was a part of Turkey's history that no one could have imagined, that the army, the establishment, which used to consider itself the owner of the country, was standing in the gutter today. It broke the back of Turkey's deep state. It played an important role in getting the army out of politics and establishing civilian supremacy. Erdogan won this war. He proved that he is not just an ordinary politician. He is a player who has the courage to challenge the state within the state and defeat it. Keep this in mind. This work could not have been done without controversy. This is not possible. As they say in English, never bring a knife to a gunfight. Erdogan could only use a knife. And for this, whatever he did, he showed us the other side of Erdogan, the side because of which people on one side call him a democratic hero, and people on the other side call him a modern sultan. Whether the story is of a person or an incident, it always has two sides. Erdogan's story also has another side, which is probably due to his circumstances. As his power grew, he was also accused of becoming a dictator. In a country like Turkey, where there was very little space for Islamists, it may be necessary to do this. But the background of Erdogan, the way his political brought up, his opponents always keep sharpening their knives. But Erdogan has the answer to everything. Whether it was the protest of 2013, which was crushed, or the failed rebellion of 2016. It was such a rebellion that not only Turkey, but also Erdogan was changed. And then in 2007, the drama started, which is called the Ergenekon trials. The police claimed that they had exposed a very secret nationalist organization, that to overthrow the government of Erdogan, they were planning bomb blasts, killing and creating unrest. And the conspiracies of this organization went straight to the deep state. Then for the next few years, there was an uproar in Turkey. Hundreds of retired generals, admirals, professors, and businessmen were arrested. They were tried live on TV. The country was accused of treason. Many were sentenced to long imprisonment. This was the part of Turkey's history that no one could have imagined, that the army, the establishment, which used to consider itself the owner of the country, was standing in the gutter today. It broke the back of Turkey's deep state. It played an important role in getting the army out of politics and establishing civilian supremacy. Erdoğan won this war. He proved that he is not just an ordinary politician. He is a player who has the courage to challenge the state within the state and defeat it. Keep this in mind. This work could not have been done without controversy. This is not possible. As they say in English, never bring a knife to a gunfight. Erdoğan could only use a knife. And for this, whatever he did, he showed us the other side of Erdoğan, the side because of which people on one side call him a democratic hero, and people on the other side call him a modern sultan. Whether the story is of a person or an incident, always has two sides. Erdoğan's story also has another side, which is probably due to his circumstances. As his power grew, he was also accused of becoming a dictator. In a country like Turkey, where there was very little space for Islamists, it may be necessary to do this. But the background of Erdoğan, the way his political brought up, his opponents always keep sharpening their knives. But Erdoğan has the answer to everything. Whether it was the protest of 2013, which was crushed, or the failed rebellion of 2016. It was such a rebellion that not only Turkey, but also Erdoğan was changed. Perhaps because someone attempted to kill him for the first time. Yes, on the night of July 15th, when the rest of the soldiers were occupying Istanbul and Ankara, their biggest target was President Erdoğan himself. He was in Marmaras, a tourist destination in southern Turkey. A group of rebel soldiers was sent to catch him by helicopter or perhaps to kill him. But just a few minutes before his arrival, Erdoğan had left. It was really a miracle. In fact, wait a minute, the miracle was still left. Erdoğan was flying to Istanbul in his private jet, but even the airspace was not safe. 16 jets of the rebels were bombing Erdoğan's plane. Yes, to kill him. And then what happened? I still can't believe it. Both planes saw Erdoğan's jet and came so close to it that their pilots could see the pilots of Erdoğan's plane. But they didn't fire. Why? Why didn't they fire? Did they get an order, or they didn't have the courage? Or did the betrayal of Erdoğan's pilot come in handy, who said that this is a passenger flight of the Turkish Airlines going to Istanbul? This secret has not been fully revealed yet. But whatever happened, Erdoğan had the courage and luck that night. And he also got the one moment that you need to change your life. Erdoğan was saved from the jaws of death. And then the future was bright, after which thousands of judges, teachers, government employees, and journalists were arrested in the country, or they were fired from their jobs. Those people were accused of being supporters of the mastermind of the rebellion, Fethullah Gulen. Today it is said that there is direct or indirect government control over the media in Turkey. And the most important thing is that in 2017, a referendum was held to abolish the parliamentary system in Turkey. And instead of that, an administrative system was established. Thus, all the big and important powers were given to Sadr, i.e. Recep Tayyip Erdoğan. Erdoğan and his party have their own reasons for all these actions, and they are solid too. But the opponents say that all this is an excuse to strengthen their grip and establish a one-man rule. What is the truth? The people of Turkey know this very well, and they decide it through their vote. A field on which the opponents of Recep Tayyip Erdoğan have not been able to defeat him yet. For 23 years, he has won every election, and his own party has come to power. Anyway, even in the worst economic conditions, Turkey has achieved great political successes, like the end of the Kurdish rebellion. Those Kurds who declared rebellion after becoming a Turkish republic, and continued their struggle for about 100 years. Finally, they joined the national movement in the era of Erdoğan. This era of peace began in Turkey, which has always been dreamed of, and its credit also goes to Iblis Silba Recep Tayyip Erdoğan. He was one of the big challenges of Turkey, which he solved. But there are not only successes in any story. There are also many failures. There are big challenges. A lot has changed in these 23 years. The world has changed. Circumstances have changed. And a lot has changed in Turkey too. Now he has to face new challenges. Challenges that will decide what will be Erdoğan's legacy. There is no doubt that today's Turkey is completely different from what it was in 2001. Today's Turkey is a much stronger, powerful, independent, and influential country. But now it faces new challenges. especially the challenge of the economy. The economic crisis that started in Turkey in 2018 has not yet stopped. Today, inflation in the country is talking to the sky. Currency is on the verge of collapse. In 2021 alone, its value fell by 44%. This may not have happened in any country in the world. In these circumstances, whether Erdogan supporters or opponents, both have completely divided the Turkish society. This is not the same Turkey 10 or 20 years ago. The honeymoon period of the AK party has ended a long time ago. Now he has to face a new challenge. Erdogan is now 71 years old. He needs a new and charismatic leadership. Erdogan gave everything to the country. Will he be given a new leadership? Time will tell, and that will prove what is Erdogan's real legacy. Undoubtedly, he is the most influential and transformative leader of Turkey. He has taken Turkey out of the worst difficulties. He has given a new identity to the world. If he is called the greatest leader of the country's history after Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, he will not be wrong. But like every great leader, this question arises for Erdogan as well. What will happen after him? Will Turkey continue to walk on the path he has made? Will the AK party remain strong without him? Or will Turkey once again fall into the trap of secularism? These are the questions that will determine the future of Turkey. And when it comes to the future of Turkey, there is no better leader than Erdogan. As the story of Recep Tayyip Erdoğan continues, it remains one of ambition, struggle, and transformation. From his humble beginnings in the streets of Istanbul to the presidential palace in Ankara, his journey reflects both the dreams and the visions of modern Turkey. He has been praised as a reformer who uplifted millions from poverty, modernized infrastructure, and gave a voice to long AST and West, tradition and modernity, democracy and strong rule. His chapter is one that the world continues to watch closely.